Welcome to One Wrong Move, where one small decision set the whole chain in motion. Today's story starts with a father letting his son hold the controls of an airliner and ends somewhere nobody saw coming. It is just after midnight over Siberia. An Airbus A310 is cruising in the dark, 6 miles up. 75 people are aboard. The flight is calm. The autopilot is flying. The story everyone remembers is the child in the cockpit. That version is too simple. The daughter had no real control. The son had no idea what that wheel could do. Then he leans on it. He holds it over to one side for about 30 seconds. Inside the machine, part of the autopilot quietly lets go. No alarm, no warning sound. One small light. Nobody in that cockpit hears a thing. A few minutes later, everyone on board will be dead. This is Aeroflot Flight 593. The 23rd of March, 1994. A night flight from Moscow to Hong Kong. The aircraft is an Airbus A310, a modern, Western-built wide-body jet. For Aeroflot in 1994, that matters, this is brand new technology to them. The Soviet Union had only just ended. These crews were now flying leased Western jets, packed with automation they were still getting to know. Most of these pilots trained for their careers on older Soviet aircraft, different planes, different habits. And a plane teaches you what to expect. After thousands of hours, your instincts are shaped by the machine you fly. Hold on to that. It is going to matter more than anything else tonight. There are 2 captains on this flight. They trade off, so each one can rest on the long leg. The one flying this stretch is the relief captain, Yaroslav Kudrinsky. He is 39. And on this trip, he has brought his 2 children along. A son, about 15. A daughter, around 13. It is the middle of the night. The plane is steady, and he wants to show them what he does. Think about how ordinary that wish is. Any parent who loves their job has felt it. You want them to see it. So he brings them up to the flight deck, one at a time, to sit in his seat. Back then, in that world, this wasn't unheard of. Cockpit rules were looser. The doors weren't locked like today's cockpit doors. And in his mind, there is no risk in this. The autopilot is flying. The kids are just along for the feel of it. He isn't handing them a real airplane. He's letting them touch a seat while the machine does the flying. The daughter goes first. She sits in the captain's seat. Her father is right there beside her, in command. And here's the part people always get wrong. She is not flying the plane. Her father does something clever. He reaches over and turns a knob on the autopilot, the heading knob. It makes the plane bank gently left, then right. The autopilot is still doing all the work. She feels the plane turn under her hands and thinks she's steering. She isn't. She has no real control of that aircraft at all. Not for 1 second. The plane is doing exactly what it was always doing, flying itself on the heading her father dialed in. It is a harmless trick. She has her moment. Nothing goes wrong, then she gets up. Remember that. When the children are blamed for this, it is the daughter people picture, and she never touched the outcome. Now the son takes the seat. Same idea. His father works the heading knob, and the boy thinks he is turning the jet. But the son does one thing his sister did not. He grips the control wheel, and he holds it. He pushes it over to one side and keeps the pressure on, the way you would steer a car. He's about 15. He thinks he's driving the plane. It feels real to him. And he does not let go. He just keeps holding it there. On the planes these pilots knew best, pressure like that did not quietly hand over one axis. The crew expected resistance or a warning. His father is not worried. He has flown for years. A little pressure on the wheel against the autopilot is nothing. But this is not one of those planes. This is the A320, and the A320 is built to do something different. The next part is the hinge of the whole accident, why the airplane let go silently. If one small design choice changing everything is your kind of story, subscribe now. Here is what the designers were thinking. Imagine the autopilot is flying, and the pilot suddenly needs to grab control fast. An emergency. You do not want him fighting the machine for the wheel. You want it to give way to him. So the A310 has a rule. Push hard enough on the wheel for long enough, and the autopilot hands you the controls. But it doesn't let go of everything at once. It only releases the part you're fighting. The boy is pushing the wheel sideways. That is the roll, the tilt of the wings. So after about 30 seconds of his weight on the wheel, the autopilot quietly gives up the roll. Just the roll. It keeps flying everything else. The height, the speed, the heading, all still on. From now on, the tilt of the wings belongs to whoever is holding that wheel, and that is a boy about 15. Now, here is the moment this whole story turns on. Slow down and watch it. Part of the autopilot has just switched off. On any plane, that is a big deal. The pilots need to know. So how does the A310 tell them? It doesn't sound an alarm. There's no horn, no voice, no warning tone at all. It just turns on a small light, one little indicator off to the side, silent. And the main display, the one showing what mode the autopilot is in, does not change. It still reads normal. So the cue the crew expects to change is still telling the same story. Everything is fine. Now remember who is in this cockpit. Pilots who spent their whole careers on Soviet jets. And on the Soviet jets they knew an important autopilot change told you, out loud. Their whole instinct says the same thing. If something important changes, you will hear it. Tonight, the thing that changed made no sound. They are listening for a warning that this plane will never give. So picture the gap here. Sit in it for a second. On one side, a boy's hands and one small light nobody is looking at. On the other, a wide-body jet, 6 miles up, with 75 people on board. And right now, the tilt of that jet's wings is set by the boy, and nobody in the cockpit knows it. For a few seconds, it does not look like anything. But the boy still has the wheel turned, so the plane starts to lean. One wing dips. The autopilot is still trying to fly, but it cannot use the wings to level itself anymore. The boy has them. So it does the only thing it has left. It pulls the nose up to hold the plane's height. And that makes it worse. A jet leaning over, with its nose pulled up, banks even harder. The son is the first to notice. He says the plane is turning. Why is it turning? The adults look up, and now the bank is steep and getting steeper, fast. The wings tilt past 45 degrees, then past 60. The plane is rolling onto its side. Kudrinsky is shouting at his son to get out of the seat, but the plane is tilting hard now. The force of the turn is pinning them in place. The boy is stuck. His father cannot get into his own seat. On the recorder you can hear it. The father telling him, "Get out, Eldar, get out." And the jet keeps rolling. Past 90 degrees, the wings go vertical. For a moment, this airliner is standing on its wingtip in the dark, over the mountains. A plane cannot hold itself up like that, tilted past vertical. The wings stop carrying it. The nose drops. And Flight 593 falls out of the sky into a steep dive. Now the first officer is fighting it. He hauls back on the controls to pull the nose up. And the dive is so steep, and the pull so hard, that he overdoes it. He drags the nose up too far, too fast. The jet climbs almost straight up, loses its lift again, and stalls a second time. This time it tips into a spin. The plane is corkscrewing down through the dark. And here's the thing you have to understand about these men. They are not panicking blindly. They're flying hard, Two pilots wrestling a wide-body jet that's falling and spinning at the same time. And against all of it, they start to win. They get the wings level once. They lose it. They fight it back and get them level again. The spin stops. The nose starts to come back up toward the horizon. The wild fall begins to slow. They are pulling this airplane back from the dead. On the recorder, you can hear the father guiding him. Pull up gently, gently. If they have enough sky left, they might still make it. They might get this plane flying straight again. But they don't know their altitude. This has all been happening in the dark. And the fall ate the sky faster than they could fight it. They have run out of one thing, the one thing nobody can give back: altitude. Almost level, almost flying again. Flight 593 hits a snow-covered mountainside. It is over in an instant. All 75 people on board are killed. 63 passengers, 12 crew, and the captain's 2 children, Eldar and Yana. The position report the crew was due to make a minute later never came. That is how the ground first knew. The whole thing, from the first gentle lean to the mountain, took only a couple of minutes. Now stop and look at what actually happened here. A teenage boy sat in a seat and held a wheel. He had no idea what it would do. He held it for about 30 seconds, and that was enough to switch off part of the autopilot. The machine changed, the plane changed, but nothing told the crew. No alarm, no voice. One small light, in a cockpit where no one was looking for a light. That is the gap this whole story lives in. A boy's hands and one silent light against a wide-body jet and 75 lives. That is the one wrong move. Not a storm, not an engine tearing apart, not a bomb. A trusted captain, a curious boy, and a warning that stayed silent when it mattered most. And this is where we have to be careful, because it is easy to blame the children. You will even see this story told as the crash a pilot's daughter caused. That is wrong. The daughter never had control of anything. Her turn was a trick with a knob. Nothing happened. And the son was a boy who did not know that leaning on a wheel could do what it did. Neither of them belonged in that seat, but neither of them is the reason this happened. The decision to put them there was the captain's, and the trap was already set inside the machine. A part that could switch off in near silence, in front of pilots trained to wait for a sound. There is one more thing that tells you how much this hurt. At first, Aeroflot denied the children had been in the cockpit at all. The story was too ugly. A captain's kids at the controls of a doomed jet. But the plane had been listening. The cockpit voice recorder survived. When the recording was made public, the denials collapsed. Everyone could hear what had happened. If you want disasters told without cheap blame, subscribe. A jet this big, lost to 30 seconds and one quiet light, should stay with you. When investigators finished, they did not just point at the cockpit. Yes, an unqualified person had been at the controls. That was the trigger. But they also looked hard at that silent switch-off, a major change announced by a single light. They flagged it. A change that important needed to be hard to miss. A warning you can only see, in a moment when your eyes are full of other things, is a warning that can be missed. Crews were retrained, so pilots would recognize this exact behavior before it surprised them. And investigators called for a clear warning when a jet banks too far. A loud one, the kind these pilots had been waiting to hear. Step back and follow the whole chain one more time. A father wanted to show his kids the plane, a small, human, loving thing to want. His daughter sat first on a trick and nothing happened. The danger was never her. His son sat next and leaned on a wheel for 30 seconds. Real force this time. And the machine quietly handed him the wings and told no one out loud. By the time they saw it, they were rolling onto their back, and they nearly fixed it anyway. Two pilots pulled that jet most of the way back from a spin in the dark. They just ran out of sky. 75 people. Gone in a couple of minutes. Over a wheel held by a boy and a light nobody heard. That is the line that stays with you. The most important thing the plane ever did, it did without a sound. 30 seconds on a control wheel. One small light. 75 lives. If this one got you, hit subscribe. One wrong move drops a new one twice a week, and the next one is worse.